what's a Metro Prep student like? I don't have an answer for that. There's too many different types, and we've been around for so long that it would you're going to forget about some kid if you say, well, most Metro kids are like this. No, they're all types of kids, and that's what makes our school like Toronto. And I'm very proud of that.
I'm Agnes Stowicki, Managing Editor with Our Kids. We're speaking with insiders from Canada's leading private and independent schools to bring you insights into school programs, culture, traditions, and leadership. This includes insights from parents, alumni, and administration. This is the Our Kids Insider Perspective.
My professional journey is probably a little different than some principals. Um, I started off doing my undergrad in English and drama. And then I got into acting and directing and music, and I traveled different places. I was in England and I was in California, but I ended up back in Toronto because I love Canada. I love Toronto, and I went to U of T, and I was going to do my PhD at U of T, and then I saw a job opportunity when I was on the subway in the Globe and Mail, and it said drama teacher at a private school. They were looking for someone, and that was back in 2001. So I applied for the job, and I did the interview, and I thought it went really well, but they didn't hire me. They hired another person, and then 3 weeks later, they called me and said, "Was I still interested in the position?" So I don't know exactly what happened, but so I met with the former principal and the founder of the school, Wayne, and it went really, really well. And I started teaching theater here back in 2001, and that's all I did for quite some time. Then I started teaching other courses like music and English and world issues, philosophy, basically all the sort of humanities things. And then in 2010, I became the vice principal, or assistant vice principal. And I did that for about 13 years. And this past summer, I became the principal of Metro Prep after sort of a very long journey. But yeah, that's how I was a teacher first. And I just loved working here. I loved the environment, and I love the freedom and the anonymity that the teacher had in the classroom to develop their own craft. And um, I usually tell people I think I've done more directing in theater and acting at Metro than I would have if I if I was working professionally. Because actors and directors, you go through these phases where you have a lot of work and then you have no work, and you're waitering or bartending or doing those types of things. And of course, I've done all of that as well. But I guess in the best interests of this video, I would say that my journey, it's just been wonderful. It's been very difficult. There's been some challenging times, but I've been here for, well, I guess 24 years. So it's my other family. Sure, that's a great question. And I've had a lot of wonderful teachers and mentors in my life. Um, and of course, books and music and film, all of those things together have really influenced me as a person and my sort of my outlook on life. To be specific, I would say as far as literature goes, I got very into Hemingway when I was young. I loved his storytelling. And a book called The Executioner's Song, which is a very, very difficult book, very, very interesting title by Norman Mailer. I love the style of that. Margaret Atwood, of course, a wonderful writer, and poetry. I love poetry, always have, and playwrights. I read a lot of, probably read more plays than I do novels now, right? So, playwrights like Pinter, love all that stuff. The minimalist stuff, Sam Shepard, Annie Baker. she's wonderful. So those are my sort of influences. Music, I mean, it's all over the place, from Bob Dylan to the Smiths to Joni Mitchell, U2. I love all types of music. Simon and Garfunkel, a lot of folk. When I grew up, Motown was a huge influence. My parents played Motown all the time, so I love music. I love all of it. Um, from a teaching standpoint, I would say that my theater professors at the University of Guelph between 1995 and 97, when I really got into theater, Professor Harry Lane was my first director, and it was the first show I'd ever done that was like a real play, and he changed my life. That cast of people who I still know to this day. The play called Escape from Happiness, which is a Canadian playwright, George F. Walker. That was the first play I ever did. I still teach that play at Metro. We've done it here. We've produced it here. I've done it professionally with one of the people that was in the play, Andrea Wasserman. She, believe she's at U of T with Hart House Theater, and so that group of people changed my life. That community of actors, directors, stage managers. That was the greatest community I'd ever experienced up to that point in my life. And I've always been in bands and things, so I like working with people, and I think theaters and music is wonderful for that. So I think that's why I love working with teenagers and teaching, is because I'm always working with. I'm not just by myself. I don't do very well working alone. Um, Judith Thompson is another playwright and one of my acting teachers. She was the one that told me to pursue it, and she's one of Canada's foremost playwrights, and she's a wonderful teacher. She left me a little note when I graduated and she said, Ryan, you need to pursue theater and seek out the best schools and go for it. And that was very, very inspiring. And then of course my family, my both my parents have been so supportive. And but the biggest influence on my teaching it would be Wayne McKelvey, who started Metro Prep. I worked with him for 23 years, and he instilled in me so many things about how to approach different types of learners, different families, how to deal with different parents, sometimes two parents in the same family, but very different approaches to education, what they wanted for their child. So he really he set some pretty high goals for all of us. And I think there's no way I would know what I'm doing if it wasn't for Wayne. Yeah, another great question. And one that I can answer very easily. I just remember about a year ago when this was all happening and the transition was happening and I was becoming the principal. I said to Joanna Johnson, who's the vice principal now at Metro, I said, I think for me to do this in the most authentic way, I have to direct the school. So even the word principal still feels odd for me. I see myself more as a director, and I'm directing all of the teachers and the students to the best of my ability, but without them as actors and designers and the screenwriters or script writers, from lighting to costuming, everything in the theater all works together, right? So to direct a school, it's kind of like a story. And I just had this conversation yesterday where, to me, everyone is Shakespeare says everyone's an actor, and we're all just, the world is a stage, and we all have to play our part. And that could be a little cliche, but I think it's very, very true. And I see people as who they are, but they remind me of characters. And because I've been doing theater and reading for so long now, a lot of people I meet, whether they're students, teachers, families, people from other schools, they will remind me sometimes of a character from a film or from a book or a play. And it doesn't mean I treat them like the character in the movie, but what I'm saying is that I've seen this person before, or I may be able to figure out a way to listen to them in a different way. I think one of the things of being a director and an actor is listening is the most important. Now, also, I can be rather verbose and talk a lot. I do like to talk, and most actors do. But when when you learn how to listen um, on stage, it changes everything. And so, if a student comes to me with an issue or a teacher, it's very easy for me to listen. It's just in my training. If I start to see something going wrong and I think, well, that's lack of preparation. An actor doesn't know their lines, they get frustrated. It changes the tone of the scene. It's the same thing in the workplace, right? If a teacher isn't prepared, instead of getting upset with them, it's, well, these are the expectations, but let's talk about it. What's going on? So how's it affecting your ability to prepare? There must be something. And then we have that discussion so that I can try to help and support, because in the end the show must go on, the play has to happen, school has to happen. So yeah, I think from being the principal, the pressure is very similar as a director, because you have to be ready. You have to get everyone ready. So I'm used to that. It's just a different, it's a much longer play. It's a longer day. It's like a year long, right? So that's different, I guess. But I would say it has prepared me in a much different way than if I had to just sort of done a traditional, I'm going to get my PhD in education, or I'm going to get my PhD in child psychology. um, I think after working for 24 years with teenagers, you learn a lot about how the teenage mind works, and you have to keep up on all of that best practices and continue reading. But one of the things I'm noticing now is a lot of the plays and movies and television shows that are coming out, they're about that. They're about young people. Some of the best stuff coming out is finally about young people. That's a new thing. And so I'm enjoying seeing from different countries, different approaches that these characters have towards the students and what teens go through. I don't think there's ever been a time where there's been more art made about young people. So that it's very helpful. Well, the school, I think, started based on an idea, and that idea was teaching students instead of just teaching courses. And that's been my motto since, I don't know when, since I guess we started working together here at Metro, that courses are matter, the curriculum matters, but you have to teach the student math as opposed to teaching math to the student, because everyone learns differently. So making it student centered back in 1982 was much more revolutionary than it is now. Most private schools will say that we foster everything about the child. There's a holistic approach, and I get that, and it's true. I mean, it works, and many schools have caught on to that. But what sets Metro apart, what makes us, I think, very unique, is that we've been doing it for so long that it's in our DNA now. And so every single time we make a decision about what courses we want to develop, and there's a lot of exciting things happening at Metro right now, with some of our new programs, but we make it about the students, and we think, well, who's here? Who's attending now? Not necessarily, well, who's attending 5 years from now? Who's here now? How do we help them now? And I think that has always been at the ethos of Metro Prep, but that the teachers and the students right now, this is where we're at. How do we make it the best we can? Problems arise. How do you deal with that? As opposed to working at a school where everything is, this is the 5 year plan, this is the 10 year plan, this is where we need to be. That's all well and good, and we have to do that to a certain degree, but we're more comfortable and better at being in the moment. And so what we're developing some exciting things, yet at the same time, we're always thinking, well, how is that going to affect our students now? So that's one thing that I think our mission is: teach the student, put them front and center. And we always have had smaller classes. So it's easier. When you have 35 teenagers in a room, it's very, very difficult. Some people are masters at it, but I think some kids they slip through the cracks, right? So we just don't have that experience here. If someone is slipping, it's obvious. There are multiple things happening. multiple strategies. I think, again, it goes back to what I was talking about, listening. I think that's the first thing that the teachers at Metro Prep, and we explain this to our families, we're like an extended family to that family. Once they join the school, we get to know the student as best we can. And the teachers are kept abreast of what is going on in that student's life, unless the family tells us otherwise. So we are very open about what a child may be going through and how that's affecting their learning. So listening, not just to the student talking to you, but you pick up on things in the classroom or in a hallway or in the lunchroom, and we're always interested in what is going on. And of course, sometimes things, are said that they lead to nothing, or it could just be a fabrication of something that's going on, and it's not even true. But most of the time, there's something going on, whether it's positive or negative. So we're listening for that. So that the strategy first is, then once you find that information out, what do you do with it? Do you talk to the student? Do you talk to the staff? Do we go to guidance? Do we call the parent? And it depends on the situation. The one thing we will not do is ignore it. It's just not in the blood of the school to ignore when a child needs something. If a child is successful academically already, let's say they come to Metro and they're just a great student and they're getting 90s and everything, and they're just lovely, and that does happen. There's always something more we can do for that child. So even then, we're still listening and we're watching to see if they're happy, and how are they socializing? Are they joining the sports teams? Are they getting involved in STEM or the arts? So that's a huge strategy, is just paying attention. And then I would say the next strategy is dealing with the student and building the trust so that you're talking to them as an equal. So one of the things that we do here at Metro Prep is we go on a first name basis with our students. So they call me Ryan. And again, that was Wayne's idea. I still think it's one of the strangest and best things that he ever came up with, because well, one, it makes you feel younger, and as I get older, I appreciate that. But it really breaks down that wall of, I'm the teacher, I know, and you do not. I've never really believed that. And so if a student is going through something, they may be more willing to talk to someone because they feel equal, closer, like that person's actually listening. And again, this isn't to say that at schools that don't, the teachers aren't listening or caring. But as a teenager, I certainly would have liked that. And I think even in my generation, if I think back to my basketball coach, Mr. Priner, well, eventually I called him Norbert. That was his first name. And I was in grade 12, and he's like, just call me Norbert. You don't have to call me Mr. Priner. That was huge for me. He'll never see this interview, but he was a great teacher. But that changed my relationship with my coach, with him, and he was also my physics teacher. So there was a bond there. I think that's a second strategy. So if a student's struggling, they will feel maybe a little more inclined to talk about it. The third thing is then picking up the phone and calling the family, as opposed to just emailing. Of course, email works, and it's a good way to track conversations, but it's not just me. It's in fact, it's not as much me as it's the teachers and Joanna. The phone, calling on the phone, getting on the other line. This is what happened today. He's going through this. They're going through that. Something unfortunate happened. Whether it's cheating, whether it is inappropriate language. Anything that a student does that doesn't meet our community standards, we try to address it right then and there. That's the other strategy, is dealing with things when they happen and not sweeping them under the rug and taking 2 or 3 weeks and let's circle back, we'll revisit, unless the family wants to do that. But we deal with it the day it happens. But that's just for like problem issues. I think from a academic side, what are some of our strategies is things like teaching kids how to be organized, planning, sitting down with guidance counselors and with their maybe the teacher that, let's say they think they're going to go into medicine, so they're bonding more with the science teachers and they really want to know what's going to happen in biology or chemistry. Okay, there's an example there. How do we get that student on track so that they do well? Well, you can't just say, well, let's get on track. That doesn't work for most students. You have to literally get them on track. So I've seen teachers say, "Where are your binders?" Oh, well, I don't have a binder. What do you mean? Go and buy the binders for every single kid in the class and bring them in the next day. And let's organize, like for grade 8, for example, let's organize these binders and get them so everyone's on the same page from day one. And then finally, we love our courses to be organized from the first day to the last day. So our syllabus for every single course is already pre-done from day one, with every assessment, every assignment, the notes that are going to be, discussed in class. It's right there. It's put on our LMS system so that a student can see the arc of the course. They can see where the course is going. Now, this is not my doing. This is just kind of a team approach. But I can say as a teacher, it gets very frustrating when students walk in and what are we doing today, Ryan? What are we doing today, Ryan? And I realized, well, if I just had told them what we were going to be doing at the beginning of it all, I wouldn't get that question. Some courses have to be more fluid, right? And so our strategy would be that we want to have, say, 75% of the day needs to be very structured, and the students need to have that, like, okay, this is what's happening. But you also want to have part of the day where there is a bit of improvisational moments where the teacher can say, we're doing this today. And they go, what? Oh, wow. Okay. Or, really? Depending on what the idea is. It keeps things fresh. So organization is, I think, again, very important to me and to the staff, and keeping kids organized. And so many students struggle with it, and they're distracted, and they have good reason to be. Being a teenager now, it's very hard. There are so many distractions. So how do we keep them focused? How do we remind them? So there's 100 different things that a teacher might have to do in one day over the course of 5 classes, to keep all of our students happy, on track, feeling like they accomplished something. And we don't always succeed. We have our bad days, every teacher does. And we just start again the next day. There's a fighting spirit here at Metro. We just don't give up. So yeah, there's quite a few things happening, and some of them are sort of piggybacking on ideas we've had that have worked. So the Smith stands for the School of Music, Integrated Arts, Theater, and Humanities. It's an acronym. It's my mother's family's maiden name, and it sort of just came to me. And back in 2017, I think, is when I wrote it on the board, and I was sort of figuring, what is this going to be? Like a society of artists, and anyone who works on the production and wants to be involved in any way, you're part of Smith. And there were aspirations of it being, an audition only kind of program, and some people do come to Metro Prep for that specific thing. They want theater and music, and they want film, and they want it all. They want to work with artists. But the cool thing about Smith is that you don't have to be a drama major to be in it. You can be going into law or medicine or business, but if you want to work on the show, you become part of this community. And it specializes that's not the right word. It's like a specialization for some students where they get really into it, especially actors. And we've had some really wonderful students that I've had the privilege of working with as actors. But then you might get a student who just wants to help out with stage managing. And I had that experience this year with a wonderful young man who wants to be an engineer. His father's an engineer. He's an extremely hardworking student, physics, chemistry, math, all of that. But he wanted to stage manage the play. And because the way his mind works, he was amazing at it, right? And he was so determined. So that program is absolutely still in existence. And what we do that's a bit different here is we'll teach a music unit in a course that's not music. So let's say you're teaching English. I might sit down with the English teachers, or if I'm teaching English, and I'll have a unit of music and we'll study the lyrics. Or if you're teaching a theater course, right? You're going to talk about humanities. You're going to talk, okay, well, what was going on historically at the time this play was written? Who are these characters? What are they going through? Who was in charge of the government? So that pedagogically, these things link up. And quite often the teachers will meet and we'll have like a theme for the year. And sometimes the themes are very mature and they can be intense. It could be about betrayal or dysfunction in a family. And we find stories that link up, and then music and film and everything kind of correlates. And then other years, like this year, it was all about, was much more fun. Let's just put it that way. We adapted a film called Almost Famous by Cameron Crowe, but we adapted it for the stage, and it involved over 25 students, and teachers are involved. So that's alive and well. The Genius program, which is very exciting, and literally the laboratory is being built this summer, starting next week, actually. I'm very excited about that. And the idea of Genius came from Smith, in the sense that, how do we brand it? What do we call it? And because it's about genetics and it's focusing on biotechnology and DNA, it's very cutting edge. This laboratory, the courses that have been developed that are going to be interdisciplinary courses, they've been developed by professors that work in the field, specifically one from UBC, and they're visiting, setting up the lab with us. This is a very, I don't want to say it's prestigious yet because we haven't started it, but the idea is, to be part of Genius, you have to really be interested in science and work hard. And we're going to allow the grade 9, 10 to do it together. Then there will be a grade 11 class, and then there's a grade 12 class. And each one's like a stepping stone to the next level. I think the modern approach of adding things in STEM, because we've always had very good, excellent, excellent teachers since I started here way back in 2001. I would say I don't want to say the most respected, but as respected as anyone were the science teachers and the math teachers at Metro. So we've always been known as an academic school. But you have to keep moving on. You have to be cutting edge. You have to offer things. And biotech and this lab are just going to, I think, excite the students. And it's not just that we're building something that's going to look cool. They're actually going to learn things that they're not learning anywhere else. Or if they wanted to learn, probably they're not going to see a lab like that until they get to university. So this is something we're very excited about. A lot of work goes into it. And then the third thing is that right now just this year, we've become an IB candidate school, which we're super thrilled about. The IB world and the way that IB works, I think, is very well suited to not just the mission of Metro, how we teach, but what we've always thought was important. A well-rounded but organized approach to what students should be doing, and just pushing them a little bit more so that they're more prepared. And that's the middle word in the name of our school. So that's going to take a little bit to get, you have to get accreditation. There's a whole process of that, as people would know. But the fact that we're a candidate school and that we're already in phase 2 is very exciting. So you have Smith, you have Genius, you have the renovations happening, and then IB. It's sounds like a lot, but again, it's just like a show. It's just another show. We need some more people, I think, on crew. That's what I would say. A few things there. One, we started the Metro Prep Parent Council, or Parent Association, this year, and it's been a huge support for myself, the teachers, and I've gotten to know families in a slightly different way. Actual parents coming into the school, using the staff room, having long meetings that are organized with agendas and what are we planning? How are we going to do this? How can we help Ryan in the school do this gala event? We did this wonderful the Metro Prep Academy Awards this year, and we could not have done it without the Parent Association. Through that association, parents meet other parents, and oh, I know your son, or I hear about your daughter, whatever the case may be. So that in itself is pretty new, and it seems to be something that gives me an insight into what families share in terms of their sort of like expectations of what their kid is achieving and what the students want. So I would say, of course, we have lots of different types of families, but one thing that seems to be very common is they want to know how their child is doing, and they want to know if we think they're pointed in the right direction. And if they're not, what are we going to do to change that? And I think all good teachers and administrators know that is, in the private school world, there's nothing more important than your child. There's nothing more important than anyone's child, probably, right? If you ask a parent, and most people are going to say, what's the most biggest thing that changed your life? Becoming a parent. What's your most thing you think about, worry about? It's your child. That's how I feel. I have a 16-year-old daughter. It's the greatest thing that ever happened to me. That being said, now, when I come to work and I have all these 16-year-olds, every one of them matters. So the families here, they unite on work hard, get your marks, get into the top schools. And we're known for that. We have an amazing acceptance rate for kids getting into university. So we're united in that goal. We're united in being inclusive. And if a student's going through a rough time, why? I have to be honest, it's a pretty easy part of my job speaking with our families. It's just the culture we have here. If I see a parent or a child, they want to talk to me about something, I don't, I'm not going, oh, here we go, ever. It's just not like that. I mean, maybe that's because I like speaking with people about their children. But the teachers here are the same thing. I could go on and on about our staff and how dedicated they are to these families. But if the families are not united and they want completely different things, well, then I would say, well, why are you here? When you come to our school, you can feel the environment is like a teacher. Every classroom is designed in a specific way. So in the history room, it's antiques and old props and books, and then you go right across the hall to physics, and it's space, and there's a chemistry lab. Biology has an aquarium. Every classroom fits its subject, and the students move around, so they're never in the same room all day. So that's like its own educator. So when a family comes in on a tour and you walk around and you see all the paintings and the lamps and the hominess of it, right away, is this, do I need another family? Does my kid need a school that is like a place away from home that they're going to feel comfortable in? If you need that, every parent who's here would say, yeah, we get that. Some families aren't looking for that. They're looking for something different, maybe a little more traditional. So I think what our families do unite about is they like a little bit of the traditional and they like a little bit of the modern, and how we mix that to stay kind of relevant and current. I think that's one thing. And how we treat one another is very important. Very important. That's probably the thing I deal with the most is if someone's not treating someone else well, they're in my office. We got to talk about that. And again, I learned that from Wayne and my parents. It's just the way I am. I don't like it if people are feeling like hurt or not included. It bothers me. So the families know that. I think they feel like their kids are safe to tell us things, and we'll take care of them. maybe that's all I'd say about that for now. I mean, I think families, there's so many different students that have come through this school. They'd all tell you a different thing about what they remember about Metro. And the fact that they still visit, and they want to see their teachers. And I mean, we're talking people in their 30s and 40s that are coming by saying hello in their 20s. It's a great place for that. You feel good about that here.
Great. Um, all right, Ryan, we covered the questions that I had planned to ask you, but is there anything that I didn't ask that you'd like to touch on before we conclude the interview?
Um, I think the only thing I'd like to mention is one of the things that we're doing here that I'm very proud of is asking students when they do a tour and they do an interview. I ask them how they think they can make Metro Prep better. What are they going to do for our school? Because so many people out there think that if you're going to go to an independent school and you're paying tuition, that the school's going to do all these things for you. And that's true. That's part of the deal. But I think it's very important for young people to know what their value is. And so I'll ask them. And quite frankly, a lot of them don't know the answer right away. So I'll say, well, next time we speak, I want you to think about what you bring to the table. And right away, that gives them a sense of, I can make a difference in what I want to make a difference in. I'm not making a difference in because the teacher's telling me to do that, right? It's by choice. So a student might say, well, I'd like to start this club. You don't have this. I'd like to start that. Or I'm going to be a really good listener to my friends. If someone's down, I'm going to listen to them. Typical things that sound good, but sometimes, that's the kid really means it. So putting the onus on a student so that they know we're looking for students that are going to contribute, not just succeed. People, I guess the term fit, you probably hear this all the time. Is the school the right fit? That's something I've never really enjoyed talking about, because how do you fit a teenager into anything? Because they're changing, their brain chemistry is changing, their bodies, their emotions. And it's like they might fit now, and then right now they don't because they feel down about themselves, their self-esteem, whatever. You don't give up on that student. Well, they don't fit our mold. No, there's no mold. We're a school of people that want to educate students, and we're going to do it to the best of our ability. So when parents, well, do you think my kid will fit in? That doesn't matter, right? That doesn't matter to me if right away they fit in. Fit into what? Like, if you know what I mean, parents will say, well, is that code for, is my child going to have friends? Well, yes. Are they going to, are they going to participate in trying to make friends? Are they going to put themselves out there? Because that's really hard for some students, right? Really hard for some students they don't know how to make friends. So then we try to help them. So our families are very, very loving, patient, and that's what we're known for, is that. So I would strongly advise, if you're interested in a school like Metro, that we subscribe to that, that mission, that every kid deserves a chance as long as they're willing to contribute. I'm interested in meeting them, as opposed to, like, what's a Metro Prep student like? I don't have an answer for that. There's too many different types, and we've been around for so long that you're going to forget about some kid if you say, well, most Metro kids are like this. No, they're all types of kids, and that's what makes our school like Toronto.
For more information about this school, you can visit their profile at ourkids.net.